Hello, you brilliant little marketing bees. You're tuning to episode 33 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. This is the podcast which helps you to understand what all these business and marketing buzzwords actually mean and how they can be helpful going forward. I'm your host, Ben Roberts, and in this show I'm the marketing bee in charge of making sure I can get on the right guests and ask the right questions to make sure that these words and phrases actually make sense. And in today's show we're going to make sense of the buzzword trust marketing. I know, it's a really cool topic. And before we do that, I need to let you know that this podcast is powered by Talkative. Talkative is a company that brings together web chat, aka live chat, voice calls, video calls, and co-browsing together in one package that embeds into your website, allows your customers to voice call you and text you basically through your website and allow you to respond in real time. Really, really cool product. Really doesn't break the bank either. Check it out at talkative.uk. Also, let you know that, remember, on the 1st of August, so really not long now, so like 3 weeks, 1st of August, I'm actually launching, so this is the next teaser bit, we're launching a crowdfunding campaign, okay? So I'm launching a crowdfunding campaign on the 1st of August, linked to the Marketing Buzzword Podcast and project. I'm going to announce some more stuff on the website later this week, and on episode 34, the bite-sized buzzword, I'm going to give you even more details then, and a little bit more of a tease. But do check out the website, marketingbuzzword.com, for more details about the crowdfunding campaign, which I'd love for you to get involved in. And one final thing before we get on to this week's guest. If you are loving the show, please do leave a review on iTunes. I really, really do appreciate it. Right, that's more than enough about me and the show. Let's introduce this week's guest. And this week's guest, an expert buzzword bee, is probably one of the world's most foremost experts on marketing trust. And it's a guy called Adam Buchanan. So, with over 11 years of experience in social media marketing, public speaking, influencer marketing, and managing digital marketing programs, Adam has a distinct view on building a better customer experience. Adam believes marketing should be done with good morals and the purpose to build trust with a customer and not trick them to buy. Companies such as Columbia Sportswear, Capella's, Expertricity have had Adam build their social media marketing strategies and grow their teams. Adam has also advised brands like Hydro Flask, OptConnect, Probar, and Enso Rings to enhance their influencer marketing and content strategies in order to grow their brand. Adam is also the host of the Marketing Trust podcast on iTunes, where he gives business owners and marketers the tools they need to infuse more trust with their audience. And this is what made it really exciting when I heard about Adam and the stuff he was doing, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. So, that's more than enough from me. Let's get on with the show. Hi Adam, and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me, Ben.
Good, I'm so excited. I know this is why I love doing this podcast. So from the other side of the world, and we get to have these sort of amazing conversations.
Absolutely. We were just talking that you're in Wales. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's the world is getting smaller and smaller.
Exactly, and this is what I absolutely love doing, is being able to pick people's brains from across the other side of the world. And actually, that's what I love, is sort of this sharing economy sort of thing, where people doing different things in different parts of the world can actually learn and cross-share experiences that just makes the world a better place.
For sure. Glad to be here on the show.
Awesome. So, today, Adam, this is talking about a term that I think is growing in terms of popularity, especially sort of because of recent times. And we're going to talk about trust marketing today. Now, this is a term that I think is really upcoming at the moment, but it's probably something that the mass market probably hasn't quite got to grips with. So, can you sort of define for me and for other people listening, what would you say is trust marketing exactly?
Absolutely. So over the last few years, a lot of people have asked me, Adam, how do companies do a good job in business? How are they succeeding in social media? How are they excelling in marketing? And And I've observed this over the last 10 years, and really it comes back down to trust. They can maintain trust, and they can, get people to trust them. And so that is why I have really forged ahead and started this term of marketing trust, because that's how people shop. They buy from who they trust. And before a transaction happens, trust must exist. So really how I define it is, it's three main things. It's proximity, honesty, and expertise. And so with proximity, we have a closeness with one another, whether it be between a business and a consumer or a friend. We trust those who we're close to. And then honesty, it's just like it is, we trust people who are honest with us. And expertise, we trust people who have experience, have passion, and are experts in their craft. And that's who we buy from.
No, that's interesting. So, but do all businesses then need necessarily trust? For example, or is it almost like it's almost like a spectrum, I guess, of trust? Would you call it that way? Where, for example, if you were buying a high-end white good for your personal life, so we're talking a car, a house, a major holiday or something, you'd need high levels of trust. Whereas, how does that differ then with someone who's going to a pound shop in the UK or a dollar shop in the US? What are the different levels of trust in sort of that spectrum across?
I think for, the car, the house, think about all the contracts you do and all the things you fill out and all the paperwork. We do have, that would definitely fall on the higher level of trust of, we trust that the car manufacturer made a safe car. We trust that the sellers of a home, said that there's no mold in the basement, right? And we have paperwork to back this up. When you're, just buying something for less than $5 or maybe a sandwich, that trust is, the expectation will probably decrease drastically, but there still is some level of trust of, I give someone $10 for a sandwich and a soda. I expect it to taste good and get me to the next meal.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, but where would you say there is a spectrum, and how do businesses find where they sit on that spectrum? I think that's probably maybe where I need to sort of word the question a little bit better, because it's somewhere in that spectrum, businesses will have different levels of product or service that require different levels of trust. So how does a business find out where they sit? How much work does a business need to put in to find out, okay, this is what my customer expects in order to be able to make a purchase from me?
Yeah, I think, if you look at the hotel tourism industry, there's a certain level of expectations that, visitors have when they visit a hotel. Just last week, I was meeting with a few other consultants, and we were traveling a lot. And we're kind of talking about, what are those expectations of a hotel? A clean room, fair price, has Wi-Fi, not a lot of upcharges. And there's just kind of these base level things that we expect. And I think as we listen to our customers and understand, what are the surveys we're getting back? How are we doing on Net Promoter Score? We can start to understand okay, here's where we're missing it. Here's where people are really having some expectations and some gaps that we need to fill. And so any company can, do some social listening, really dive into their consumer surveys and understand, okay, we're missing it. We're getting a lot of, 1 to 2 star reviews, and then they can understand where they fall in that spectrum and also look at their industry as well. Of, okay, why are all our competitors doing so much better than us? It looks like they're addressing all these things that we may not be. And generally they fall under the proximity, honesty, or expertise.
I think it's an interesting one that you mentioned there, actually, sort of taking the customer surveys stuff. I think that's one thing that business will probably find difficult, is actually maybe the time and the effort it takes, but it's actually always worth it to build that trust, because that builds that loyalty, that builds that retention, which actually saves you money. But a lot of businesses you'd argue that don't necessarily spend the time looking at these customer surveys or taking much interest in them. I know I've been to business before where they've just taken a quick survey and you're like, I don't know if you're actually going to benefit, because I've never seen any difference in the service or the quality of offering. So how do businesses really show that they are listening to you and that they are working hard for you as a customer? Especially, let's use the hotel industry as an example of that, because I think that's one that everyone can sort of relate to.
the main one is making sure marketing and customer service are really in sync and they have a process on their side to receive that feedback. Again, it goes phone, email, social, doesn't matter. I mean, even the front desk, everyone is in the customer service department. And so making sure that people are getting answered. As we look at the bar and where it's set right now, it's in some ways it's set fairly low. I mean, still to this day, if you send a tweet to an organization or a restaurant or a hotel and they get a response, people like retweet it, they share it. They're like, oh my gosh, the Marriott responded to my question. And, in some ways that's like where the bar is still set. However, customers still expect a high level of quality as well. So if a miss was made, companies really need to keep in check of how they're responding to their customers, making sure it's within a reasonable time, not months and weeks later, but it's got to be same day or within an hour.
Yeah, I think that is an absolutely incredible point. I know I can relate back really to the very first episode of this podcast, which feels like such a long time ago now, with Dan Gingis, and he talked all about social customer service, and actually it's all about the time and the quality it takes to reply. And actually, look, if you reply quickly and effectively, both at the same time, you actually create an incredible level of service that is actually still not the norm. And that's what it's almost worrying that it's not the norm, but you can still have an incredible impact on your customers because it's still not the norm. And I know Jay Baer obviously talks about this with his Hug Your Haters in the book there, which I think I've read it 2 or 3 times now, and I absolutely love that idea that the response times are coming down and down and down, and companies are slowly getting better, but it's not quite the norm yet.
It's true. And the early adopters, the people who said, okay, we're going to really go above and beyond for our customers, they've really set a good pace and a good bar. The thing we've got to figure out now is how do you scale that? Because when I've worked for brands, I've worked for Columbia Sportswear, Cabela's, we had, online interactions, we had in-person interactions in our stores. And it was always a challenge of how do we make it special for everyone? Not just someone with a high amount of followers. And that's really what's going to be building marketing trust over time, is how do you make it a special experience for everyone that buys from you, because that's going to have a strong residual effect for more customers pouring in.
I think as well that businesses have got to understand that these things take time to build. Again, it's like with a personal relationship. A brand has almost got to work even harder to build this trust. And I think that's something that you and I have probably both seen, is that actually maybe businesses don't take the time. Although they may respond to some tweets quickly, but that's scratching the surface of the iceberg, isn't it, really, in terms of really building trust. Yes, we're responding quickly, but then how do businesses go deeper then? How do they almost pick up the rest of that iceberg and completely melt it? And that's the weirdest euphemism I've ever heard. I don't think I'm ever going to use it again, but hopefully you get my drift, Adam.
That was an ice cold euphemism. That was ice cold. That's the next step, and that's where I help a lot of my clients with, is helping customer service and the marketing team really converge, because you have the marketing team in most cases answering those tweets. They're answering the responses, or maybe it's customer service. Let's say for this example, it is customer service. They're answering the emails, they're answering the phone calls, and then they're answering social. If there's not a convergence, it will stay in that department. If they converge and they say, okay, we need to talk about, there is a consistent complaint we keep getting, the rooms are always dirty in our hotel. That's a pretty drastic example. But so we need to then move, and this is the key, move to operations. We need to take all that data, all that sentiment, and go to operations and say, listen, we've been listening, we've been paying attention. Look at this last 6 months of data. Look at the last 90 days. It's here. We've got to make some bigger changes. And that's where companies are going to succeed in trust.
I think it's massive, actually, that process level. And it's something, again, it's easy to take each of these different bits of marketing, customer service, and business in isolation, but it's not always easy to find those processes. So how long does that actually take? Or I know that's really sort of almost like how long's a piece of string question, but is it quite easy, have you found, to marry up these different departments? Is it actually much easier than people think it is, or does it take quite a lot of work?
It's easier than you think it is, truthfully. And I don't take that lightly. I mean, it still takes a fair amount of work. But my good friend Ryan Amaral, really taught me a great lesson in this is it's not one big massive project. It's not, hey guys, we need to change our operations and let's do this big 90-day deep dive. Sometimes these things take time and you've got to show your organization over time. And so I wrote an article on Medium that really talks about how to gain buy-in from your organization over time. And really it comes down to is meeting often, doing a lot of consistent internal emails to share these sentiment, and having open office hours where people can come sit with the marketing or customer service team and just talk openly. Don't bring a PowerPoint, don't come to the class or social media course. It's come and let's just talk and answer your questions. And from there, it'll identify what these challenges are. But the cool thing is anyone in an organization is pretty interested in social media because it moves so quick. They always have an interest. Even though they don't know much about it, they want to know about it and they want to learn. So that's really how people can do it, is really play that long game and build trust internally to really move the needle.
I think that's an incredible point. But that you need to create trust within your organization before you create trust outside your organization. But then how does that work? Because obviously as a business, you may not always have happy employees all the time. And yes, employee advocacy is a big thing, but I know I've worked in businesses before where you've struggled to get some people to buy into using social media, using other tools, because this is the same way we've always done it. It's done well. So is it worth that time to really build the trust inside, or can you just do it from a process? Are you just trying to? Is it just an extra step that isn't a necessity? Or is it just a nice to have?
It's a necessity if you're getting pushback from operations. If you come to operations and say, "Hey, we've seen quite a few surveys come in. Here's the 1 to 2 star reviews. Here's kind of our assessment that we need to change these 2 or 3 things." If they look at that and they're like, yeah, let's do it. It takes a little resource, takes a little money. It may not be that even big of a deal. It may be changing a few things on the website or changing a few things in the retail store. But some companies, if you come to them and say, hey, we've got to change some pretty heavy things, they may push back and say, well, we need more data, or we need more information about this, or that's going to cost way too much. We can't invest in that. That's where having those ongoing meetings and the open office hours can really help, so that executives are constantly seeing marketing. But then when they come to ask for something fairly large from a process perspective, it's not as painful, I guess. It's more welcomed.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge amount of sense. And then I almost want to then sort of take it back then and strip this right back then to almost as a business that was starting out then, because I know there are a few people who listen to the podcast who have younger businesses, real small businesses, and actually then if a company has very few customers currently, but they either want to expand massively or they want to expand a little bit, either way they want to grow, is how do they keep building that trust? Because if they haven't got any customers, they can't necessarily display a huge amount of user-generated content. They can't really generate a massive amount of reviews. How do companies like that really generate trust? Because that's a different kettle of fish to a massive organization that has a huge number of customers behind it.
The way they do it is when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money in ads. It's hard to compete with the big fish in the pond. What you can compete with is time. And so what I look at under the marketing trust, kind of idea is that you have proximity and you have expertise. And so these companies are starting out, they can build a really tight relationship using that proximity method of one-on-one phone calls, one-on-one emails, sending a personal video, helping their small customer base know that they are present, they are there. And then couple that with expertise and say, hey, we hear you have this need, this problem, and we are here to solve it. We're going to give you a little bit more information. We are the experts in this. We've been doing this for so many years. We are here to resolve this challenge that you face in your life with this product or service. And so by doing those two things, that's really going to help accelerate their growth, because then their small customer base will feel that personalization and will share and say, wow, this company really goes above and beyond for me.
I think that's a great point, isn't it? It's about taking that small number of customers and turning as many of those into advocates as possible, because you could have a big number of customers. You say you could have, say, 100, 200 customers. But if you've only got, say, 1% of those as advocates, you've only got sort of one or two advocates. Whereas actually, if you only had 10 customers, but you had 10% of those, 10% of your 10%, 20, 30% of your 10 customers, actually that's 3 or 4 advocates, which takes you a bit above where those bigger companies are. And again, that's what you said, it takes time, but actually you've got that time, you can build that trust with a smaller number, which means you get a bigger number of advocates, which in turn generates more business and more customers down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the idea, getting these people to advocate for your brand.
Perfect. And then I've got another thing that was sort of in my mind going through this, Adam, and it's trust. Obviously is something that we talked about right at the start. It's something that has been sort of waning in recent times. We've had the things like the Volkswagen emissions scandals, we've had Facebook stuff, we've had all this GDPR stuff, so much stuff going on and flying around at the moment about trust and data and all these data breaches and people losing trust and faith in businesses. Now, if you are one of these businesses, big or small, because actually most cybercrime, for example, happens to small businesses. So how do businesses start to rebuild that trust? Because again, trust is really hard earned and really easily lost. So as a business, you've been at the mercy of either a massive PR storm, you've had an advert that's been accused of being misleading, you've been caught up in a data event. How do you start to rebuild that trust?
It's good to catch ahead of it. The best time to, build an oak tree is 20 years ago, but the next best time is today, right? And I always tell people, always manage your business like that trust could just quickly be wiped away. And so preparation is key. And so constant email communication, making sure people know that you're there, know what you offer. It's always a pain to the consumer. And we saw this just recently in the last few months. Everyone's starting to get emails about updated privacy policies, right? And it's like, haven't heard of that company, but they're appearing in my inbox, And it's like, oh, right, I did give you my email 4.5 years ago. And the issue with that is we've forgotten who these companies are. They haven't talked to us in years. They haven't really given us any value. They haven't built a relationship with us. Now, the ones that have, and they have that consistent communication, they send their privacy policy email, and it's like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, I totally remember you, and you're with me. You're in my network. So companies have got to think, how do we consistently deliver, that value and stay consistent, other than, versus waiting for the crisis, waiting for the issue, waiting for even the promotion. A lot of companies just say, well, we don't really have anything big right now. There's nothing worth talking about. You've got to find something worth talking about every week, every day, because people need to hear from you.
Yeah, I think surely with every business, there's got to be something relevant and interesting going on within it. Again, it's about being consistent. We're not saying about necessarily having something to say every single day, but if you're doing, even if it's 2 weeks, but it's consistent and it's quality, and I think that's the two things, isn't it? It's making sure that whatever you do is consistent and to a really high quality, and that is a key of trust. If you start dropping the quality of your emails, people start to trust you less because you're not actually putting as much time and effort into something that you used to, without them maybe seeing massive benefits in other areas of the business. You've got to sort of talk to your customers and actually help them understand, so they're not just suddenly hit with something last minute and then they panic. Then if people don't understand or know what's going on from something they think they've known for a long time, you haven't communicated it with them, that's when trust really starts getting damaged. And I think it's something that it's a really human response, and actually then it's trying to make sure that actually, as well as humans acting like businesses sometimes to make sure things are done efficiently, businesses need to think more like humans, because ultimately they deal with humans and they're run by humans.
That's right. I actually wrote a Medium article on this one as well, of how to rebuild trust with your customers when you've made a mistake. And the other point there too is is, taking that small business approach of having those one-on-one conversations with people, really finding the people who are your detractors and having a conversation, understanding what their pain points are, listening and making the change. Once the change is made, making sure to amplify that and tell people, we've heard you, we messed up, but we've made it right. A lot of people just make it to, we've heard you, we messed up, here's an apology from our CEO that you've never heard of. And that just doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh, again, you build trust with people. It's that like, know, and trust. If you don't even know the guy, how are you supposed to trust someone? I mean, it's like, I think an example I was given before, and I can't remember where I heard it, is if someone on the street comes and asks you for money, you're going to turn around and go, oh, no, or maybe chuck them $1 or £1 or whatever because you don't really know them or trust them, you don't know what's going to happen. Whereas actually, if a good friend or a family member who you like, know and trust over a period of time, if they asked you for $1,000, you'd probably be much more likely to do it because you know that either you could get it back because they say, oh, I can repay you, and you know that person is going to repay you. And it's the same sort of principle with trust in a business. If a company says, we're sorry, we've messed up, and this is how we're going to deal with it, if you've got a human face and they know who's in the business and they can relate to you, they trust you. Whereas actually, if people in your business have been hiding behind emails and they don't know who they're actually talking to, where is that level of trust? Trust only goes to so far, because if you can't deal with a human face, a human name, even know what they damn look like, how are you supposed to build trust in it? Or because otherwise it's just a brand word on a website. That's not really, how long can you trust that for?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then one of the other things then that I wanted to sort of pick up on this side, I think you briefly mentioned it earlier, and it's about actually advertising. Now, advertising is something that seems to be increasingly, people seem to be negative towards a sort of advertising through traditional sort of disruptive forms of media. Now, are we seeing now that people are trusting brands less that spend money advertising versus ones who spend money content marketing? So I'm not saying that one is necessarily better or the other, but does there seem to be a correlation from at the moment? Because that's a question I get asked before, going, actually, should I be spending money on ads instead of content marketing? Because I know ads going to have a benefit to me, but people said actually they don't trust and click on ads anymore, whereas I'm much better investing in other things.
Ad blocking software is up 30% in the last year. That means people are trying to see less ads in their online experience. That totals about $615 million in lost revenue for advertisers. So they're literally paying for ads that are not being seen by people because they cannot be shown. So ad blocking is on the rise. People do trust advertising less, and they trust people that they know more. And so this is where influencer marketing really comes into effect, because that's why brands have shifted their efforts of, okay, I can't play this game anymore. I can't push out more ads, and I can't spend more money bothering people with advertisements. What if I go work with people who are trusted? They have that expertise. They have the proximity with their audience that I'm after. So that's why, the rise of influencer marketing has been so high. In terms of should I spend money on ads, I think ads are always going to be a part of business, and we need to keep that in mind. But I think we need to think a little different about it. And it depends on the industry, but I believe that ads have got to be looked at as more of a brand awareness, and they've got to be dynamic. They've got to be changing constantly. If someone sees the same ad over and over and over, they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to X out of this. Like, I can't see this anymore. But if they see the same ad from the same company, but it's different, and, like 10 ads, they may enjoy one more than another, but they're not going to get as bothered by seeing the same one, over 10 weeks of time. So ads are important. I think they're part of the mix. However, how can we make our ads more trustworthy? Going back to being honest, showing our expertise, having proximity. And when I say proximity, I think the example there would come in an ad of, having a customer in the video with you and interviewing them, talking about their experience with the product. That's how you could do that. And I think honesty, talking about the testimonials you're receiving, talking about how well your product functions and how it's rated. And the expertise is just giving away free information, making sure people can accomplish something with value and knowledge that you're giving them. And so that is what they'll keep coming back for. And they may not buy from you right away. And companies need to be a little bit more patient than they are.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible point. I think that's something that we're noticing massively in the UK at the moment, is actually the amount of adverts now that have got things like Trustpilot is the big review site in the UK, really. And then more and more adverts have been trying to display that they're rated as excellent on Trustpilot, or they're on Trusted Traders, which is a UK-based sort of tradesman review site. And we're seeing more and more of these adverts actually having reviews built into them as a form of trying to build trust. Now, is someone just displaying an advert, having a Trustpilot logo or a Yelp logo or TripAdvisor? Does that build trust, or is it just a tiny part of a puzzle, but you would say it would likely have some sort of benefit? I guess it's going to have some benefit over no benefit, isn't it, really?
I think so, and people need to know that you're active on those channels, that you're on Yelp, you're on TripAdvisor. I think they do. I think you just have to be aware of what is it that they are reading, and we have to be careful of hiding behind the logos a little bit and making sure that the content that people are consuming is valuable, and we're not just saying, oh yeah, we're 4.7 rated on Yelp. People need a little bit more information than that.
No, I think that's really important. I think I've really sort of enjoyed sort of finding out how people sort of build trust in a business and actually how they need to be a bit more human. But there is one other thing that I actually want to sort of really sort of scratch your brain for. I think again that's another really weird term that I'm using. Scratch your brain. Well, I really want to find out then. Another term then that's sort of, I guess, linked to trust. It's something that we've been hearing. I think it's been massively since Donald Trump came into presidency. Love him or hate him, it's not about that. It's about this term of fake news. And actually, there's a big bandwagon, there's a big thing now about fake news. And now it used to be about media corporations and government. And now it seems to be filtering down to business. So do businesses really need to be worried about fake news? And if they are at the mercy of some sort of fake news, how would a business try and portray, actually, no, this isn't true, and we are still a business you can trust? Nothing has actually changed. We are still who we've always been, and we are still trustworthy.
The ones that are going to ride through this the best is who are very, very active on social media, active with their email, active with their content marketing. Meaning, if, let's say, a company goes live once a week, and in between their live videos, they post 1 or 2 videos in between, just short little 10, 30-second updates. And in between that, they're doing a lot of text updates. They're pointing to blog posts they're writing. So they're pretty active. They're a pretty healthy brand. If something comes out and about that company that throws off the customers, degrades trust a little bit, customers are going to remember all the videos, all the content that they've been seeing for months and months and months. And when that issue comes up, that company is going to be fairly smart to address it quickly and say, hey, we're seeing a lot of questions about this. We want to address this, and here's the solution. The companies that are quiet and they're just kind of coasting and they push out a video once a quarter, they're updating every other day. People don't quite see them a lot. When they go under fire, people don't trust them because they're like, I haven't heard from you in ages. What have you done to build my trust when I need it the most? So companies need to be aware of that. And also, if they're posting a lot of media coverage, a lot of news, they need to be careful with that. It may be relevant to their brand, but they really need to be thoughtful of what goes out and making sure that it's correct. Because a lot of companies are excited about being a media company, and they have to be careful with that. They need to make sure it drives back to their brand.
Yeah, again, it's making sure that everything is delivered consistently to the customer and delivered from a consistent brand as well. I think that's one of those key things, isn't it, that helps destroy trust, is when a brand yes, they can deliver something consistently, it's a weekly email, but if that weekly email is all over the place, and again, it really sort of knocks the things like expertise that you mentioned earlier. They've got to be shown to be consistent, not just in giving out information, but actually consistent in the quality and the type of information they sell, because again, that's how you build that trust over time. And I think it's amazing, actually, the amount of businesses that just want to get stuff out all the time, and maybe it's like a case of slow down a little bit. Slow down and make sure that what you're doing has a real purpose and an end goal, and that's ultimately how you're going to start building that trust within your brand.
Yep, agreed.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for coming on today, Adam. It's been an absolute blast. I think I've learned incredible amounts about marketing trust and trust marketing, and actually, for me, it's a real different way of sort of thinking about things, because again, you can look from things from a PR point of view, you can look from things from a social customer service point of view, and all how all these different elements work together. But actually, putting trust and sort of your customers at the center of things, I think it's something that we've talked about a lot, but it's actually a real nice way of being able to sort of, hopefully it's something that the listeners as well have found interesting, and trying to link all these different areas together and find, okay, that's how you build trust in that area, this is how it links to here, and it starts creating that sort of domino effect that falls throughout the business, and that's ultimately going to benefit not only your customers, which is a huge amount, but it's also going to come back to your business, and it isn't actually that expensive. It just requires a bit of thought and a bit of time and a bit of, I don't know, just a bit of putting your customers first. It's not something that has to be particularly expensive, but it can be so effective.
Yeah, people have got to listen to their customers and make those changes to grow their brand. The days are over where you can just kind of hide under the covers. Everything with social media, and we know, is exposing brands.
So, Adam, before I let you go, because I don't really want to let you go, because I could keep talking about this for too long, but I make sure that I try and get as much information out of you as possible. So, before I let you go, what is the marketing buzzword out there right now are you either loving or hating? What is out there is really sort of really frustrating you and making you angry? Or what is a term out there that you think, you know what, this is something I think is really important, it's the next big thing, or something that you think that every brand or person should be thinking about?
You know, my least favorite term, and I have to be careful because I do a lot of this work for my clients, is influencer marketing. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. When you really stand back and look at what influencer marketing or what the act is, it's not correct. It's not on par. I wish we could change it at least to like advocate marketing, because this whole idea of, because influencer marketing really is defined still by brands. The perception is, I need people with massive followings to say nice things about me, and I have to pay them for it. And it's just not the case. There's so many different ways to go about it, and I have to use that term a lot, so it's a love-hate relationship. However, I just wish we could change it just a little bit to advocate marketing. So that would be my wish. Nice.
I like that a lot. I think that I was speaking with Ashley on my podcast a few weeks ago, who's based out in Hong Kong, and she was saying actually in Asia they call them sort of key opinion leaders. And I think that was a really interesting way of sort of a slant on influencer marketing. Oh. Yeah, so I think that was something that I really sort of blew my mind doing the show. And it was like, okay, actually, from a key opinion leader, I could see a really different perspective on actually influencer marketing from that. So that was something that sort of blew my mind from doing this episode. This is why I love doing the podcast. You learn so much all the time.
I love that. And you know, I love the one too, trusted recommenders. That really, you know, makes sense. It's, yes, they recommend things and they're trusted. And I really enjoy that one as well. But key opinion leaders, that's a good one. I'll have to take note of that. That's great.
Yeah, no, I love that as well. That trust recommenders. It's sometimes, again, it's like it's trust marketing. It's almost like it's the most simple of things. You can put together two words that people use all the time, and suddenly you're like, oh, got it. That's what it is. That's what it makes sense. Oh, God, it was so simple and right in front of our eyes all the time. Why do we not see it?
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate being on the show too. I'm actually a beekeeper, and so I have 2 beehives in my backyard, and love, you know, the branding of the Marketing Buzzword podcast. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem at all, Adam. No, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely.
Now, I can probably see that some of you at the start of this episode are thinking, trust marketing, marketing trust, how is that a buzzword? But it's a term that we're hearing more and more, and I love that Adam sort of coined this term and is building it up himself, because for me, it's not just about finding amazing new but highly established buzzwords. It's also about finding these little niches in the market to find out what other people are talking about. I loved sort of the way Adam approached this trust marketing and actually how it fits in with all these different elements of the marketing mix and across the business itself. And it's something that I think that more businesses do need to really be aware of. And this is what I love about doing the podcast, is bringing these buzzwords, these terms, whether people have coined them, whether people are now leveraging an existing term. Absolutely phenomenal. So thank you so much for listening. Remember as well, please, if you did enjoy it, please leave a review on iTunes. Also, remember on August the 1st, so keep an eye on the Marketing Buzzword Sphere. They'll be launching a new crowdfunding campaign. I'm going to tease you a little bit more in the next episode. So, thank you very much for listening, and until next week, goodbye.